All feminists are MRAs by definition. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I just had yet another Facebook argument where I was accused of being a meninist by a young fourth wave feminist who apparently does not yet understand that literally nobody defines that way. I explained to her that people do define as men's rights advocates or activists, and also that feminists are technically MRAs if they do what they claim to do as feminists. She also kept on bringing up women in Pakistan suffering from sexism because she is of Pakistani lineage, and so I mentioned that she actually sounded like an MRA because MRAs talk about the oppression of women in other countries all the time. And that got me thinking. Feminism is beyond an abstract concept. It is entirely conceptually fabricated as a word which, although has a specific meaning in most dictionaries, does not represent anything tangible in practice. To give you a perspective-oriented example, I'll bring up the concept of fire. Fire is something very easily physically, visually, and scientifically observable. We all know fire is real, whether there is a word for it or not, and thereby labeling it with a word does not allow for much variance in the definition. Nobody will spend any amount of time harping on whether the dictionary definition of the word fire is accurate or not. However, feminism is an abstract concept which needs to first be defined and then observed in conjunction to that definition if you want any sort of accuracy. Without the definition of the word feminism, everybody could get by just fine. There is no pragmatic reason for this word to even exist at all, really, because people could easily advocate for the rights of women or for gender equality without the existence of the word feminism. Pragmatically, to anybody well educated about feminism and its various incarnations through the first and up through the fourth wave of internet-driven, supposedly intersectional feminism, we know that more than anything, it is an ideology that borders on being a religion, coming short of full-blown religious status only by lacking a specific god or deities, but also an orthodoxy. They certainly have the devil, though, which is the patriarchy. There are so many forms of feminism that it is literally impossible to keep track of them all, and there's many people who refer to themselves as feminists, which other feminists claim are not real feminists. Obviously, this is not a concrete concept. It is very abstract. Still, feminists love to claim when nuanced discussions about feminism come up that it is simply what the dictionary defines as feminism, which is usually referred to as something like the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. Now, I don't personally believe that this definition is at all accurate. I think that feminism, as defined by observing the vast majority of people who practice what they refer to as feminism in the West, is something more along the lines of an ideological label invented by gender studies departments and from various authors and bloggers that believe feminine identified and female born people to be at a unanimous disadvantage in reality as compared to their male counterparts, no matter what the individual circumstances of the woman, girl, or femme actually are, which has manifested itself into much political power in the form of both government and socially funded lobby groups, feminist-identified politicians, as well as being a career path in the form of gender studies, scholars, feminist writers, entertainers, and even professional provocateurs that deliberately instigate drama on the internet and use their negative responses to raise money for themselves via crowdfunding campaigns. It also is a multi-million-dollar a year industry. So no, by my definition, feminists are not men's rights advocates almost ever, and in many instances do everything they can to either ignore the gender-specific problems that men and boys face, deny they exist entirely, or even advocate to make things worse for men and boys in many instances, like the way they slander, libel, and attempt to get legitimate MRAs fired from their jobs or even be brought up on criminal charges if they can, like in the case of Gregory Allen Elliott versus Stephanie Guthrie in Toronto. Not sure if Gregory identifies as an MRA technically, but he was advocating for the specific rights of a man when he got in trouble, so close enough. However, the point of this video is that by definition, feminists should all consider themselves men's rights advocates. If we go by the dictionary definition of feminism, which is about equality, then they should be advocating for more studies done around male suicide being, as it is, almost 5 times as common as female suicide, instead of pretending that this isn't the case or that it doesn't matter because women and girls supposedly attempt suicide more often than men and boys. Which actually isn't really true. Men and boys are a lot less likely to report failed suicide attempts, so nobody really knows. If feminists were true feminists, like the dictionary claims, they would be fighting the massive gender imbalance in terms of enrollment in colleges, which places women at about 60% of university enrollment in the West. Finally, they would admit that black men, gay men, and all of the other intersections of masculinity face specific treatment in society that is extremely different and generally far more violent than the way that their female counterparts experience. But they don't. So here's the takeaway from this. If you advocate for the gender-specific issues of men and boys being paid attention to, and a feminist accuses you of being a MRA or a meninist or something, like these are bad things, ask her what she defines as. When she says that she is a feminist, ask her what the definition of feminism is, according to her. When she gives the dictionary definition, explain that by definition, she is an MRA too. She will likely say that you are then a feminist as well if you believe in equality. But here's where you can get her. You can say that no, you don't self-identify that way. She can say that she does not identify as an MRA in return, but then you can say that therefore she isn't a feminist because she does not follow the definition of feminism. She cannot have it both ways. Either she advocates for gender equality, including the rights of men and boys, or she doesn't. She will be faced with the intellectual dilemma of either admitting to being an MRA or abandoning the label of feminism if she is at all intellectually honest, which she likely won't be, but it's worth a try. Finally, if you choose to take on the label of MRA or men's rights advocate or activist, or even if you don't, I feel it is helpful to say that you also consider yourself a women's rights advocate. Because why not? Ultimately, what I am really getting at here is that the label of feminism and being a feminist is a useless label and term that causes far more confusion and harm than it does anything good these days. And I think if we approach the conversations correctly and have the right info, we can make it clear to people that the only reason it truly exists is to perpetuate itself and its political power and influence and money and all that stuff. All right, have a nice night and stay tuned.